Lamar.
Mackenzie.
Oh my God, it's my turn. I love when it's my turn and you have to mock me a little.
Flip the roles,
Yeah. Okay, so we have a couple special items today. So first and foremost, we have a guest, Mac. Mac Attack.
What's up, gang?
Does anybody ever say Mac Attack to you?
Yeah, it happens quite frequently. So happy to be back. Happy to get a nickname and an honored guest title.
I know. Okay, so Mac is our honored guest today. I really brought him in, and we're going to talk about it in a second, but I asked him to join us because I needed a wingman for this episode, and it was not going to be Lamar, right? So
cool. Well, I'll peace out. You guys have fun this episode. Fuck.
Lamar is not into Westerns, and y'all, it's our first fucking Western. I'm so excited. So with that in mind, we'll get into that in a minute. I have a fun cold open for us. Is everybody ready to play a game?
Go.
I think I'm ready. I'm like Doc Holliday. I'm seeing double because I got Mac and Mac on my screen, but I got two guns, one for each of you. But let's do it. Yeah.
Two Macs make a right, I'm telling you. Okay. So what we're going to do is that I found an outlaw cowboy name generator last night when I was watching this movie. And so I have generated some options for you both and myself. So what I would like us to do is pick a name, but the person who we're choosing for can't pick. So we're going to do Lamar, we're going to do Mac, but and then y'all can pick for me. Who wants to go first?
And it's just like most fitting. Like, which one do we think fits them?
Which one do we think fits? And I will tell you, I did some themes in the generator, and we'll explain them when we get to them. So, who wants to get their name first? Mac, Lamar, who's up?
I feel like our honored guest should probably get his first.
Our honored guest. Okay. So, Mac, your theme was heroic.
Wow.
I
really am honored.
Yeah. You are honored. Also, there weren't that many options, so just to be clear, I don't want anybody to get.
I'm worried about my theme based on what you fucking said about me not being a wingman. My theme is going to be shit. Like just
your theme is appropriate. Okay, so I just want. I think that they are appropriate. Okay.
All right.
So here are our choices for Mac, and we may or may not accept comments from the Peanut Gallery. I don't know, but the first one is Ryder Colt McGraw, which also sounds like a country music star to me. Wyatt Steele Carson, Ranger Blaze Hawthorne, Jasper Flint O'Sullivan. Okay. Travis Duke Woldridge. These are getting really weird. Zane Storm Ridgway and Dallas Ranger Caldwell. What do we...
I thought this was going to be like an A, B, C, D options. There's a lot in there and they're kind of blending together, but I liked the last couple and the first couple. The ones in the middle, I don't know, Mac, how did you feel?
I thought that
he can't pick. I mean, you can add comments, but you can't pick. Okay. I actually am kind of leaning towards the third one. It's funny you say that. Ranger Blaze Hawthorne.
That's sick. That's so sick.
Hawthorne.
Blaze, right? That's a good one. That's a good one. Like, I would be down for that personally. The other one I thought was probably pretty good was Zane Storm Ridgway. Like, that sounds
Ridgway's
so intense.
a cool last name.
Ridgway's a cool last name, right? See, you got all good ones. Okay, what do we think, Lamar? Are we going to be nice? Are we going to go Blaze or Storm? You know, I think that's really.
I just like the last name Ridgway, but I do like Blaze a lot. You break my tie in my brain.
Oof. Okay. I kind of like Ranger Blaze Hawthorne. I just can't get away from the Blaze. You know, I feel like we're gonna just call you the Blaze for the rest of the episode.
That'd be great. And I mean, what's
all right? You have been bequeathed with your outlaw name.
Sweet.
That's a good one. Yeah, exactly. All right, Ranger Blaze Hawthorne. You're welcome. Hell yeah.
Nice.
Okay. We're already vibing today. I like it. Okay, Lamar's up next. All right.
What's my theme?
So your theme was funny.
Oh,
so
okay.
I don't think you should be upset at all.
I'm like the Ike of this group.
Just yes.
The lovable scamp.
The lovable
no backbone.
He's a little bit not lovable, but yes. Okay, yes. So you're going to notice a distinct difference. This is the same generator, but I'm saying the theme makes an impact. You know what I mean? Okay. So Rusty Saddlebag
Okay.
Buckaroo MacGuffin, which I have a fun fact about
Wow.
buckaroos. I have, fun buckaroos, if you didn't know, are living cowboy historians. Okay. So that's fun. Tex Tumbleweed, Howdy Doody McCoy.
No, we're not doing that one.
Are we not? Maybe.
I mean,
maybe.
That's my least favorite so far, for the record. Howdy Doody.
I kind of think it's great. Okay, so Jasper Jangle Boots, Yeehaw McGraw, okay, Boots McGee, and Zeke Zany Pants.
Those got progressively worse. The ones that rhyme are
progressively goofier, goofier for sure. So he hated Howdy Doody McCoy, but I kind of think it's great, actually. I also like Jangle Boots. I don't know. What do you think, Mac?
What was one of the last ones? Just Boots McGee? Because that's just
Boots
simple
McGee.
enough to be ridiculous.
I also liked Buckaroo MacGuffin. Also,
that was very good. This is a can't miss. This is a can't miss.
Yeah, they're all great in their
fit.
own ridiculous ways. Yeah. But should we torture Lamar and give him the one he hates? Because I just also think that's the funniest one.
You're going next, jackass. So
okay, that's true. That's true. Okay, let's be nice to Lamar today. All right, I think I would narrow it to Buckaroo MacGuffin or Boots McGee. What do you think, Mac?
I think because of your fun fact, we have to go Buckaroo. We have to Buckaroo it up. Yeah.
Okay. I'm so glad we all agree. All right,
yeah.
Lamar.
That's the one I wanted. Okay.
Buckaroo MacGuffin. Now we're gonna call you
short.
You're Buckaroo and Mac is Blaze today. Y'all are both bees. That's adorable.
What's a MacGuffin in cinema terms and theaters? It has a meaning, right? What is a MacGuffin again?
Yeah, it does. It does.
It's not like a red herring, but it's something.
It's kind of.
It's an object that moves the plot forward. So in Avengers and in the Infinity War, the Infinity Stones are the MacGuffins that push the plot forward.
Got it.
Overall, but also in each individual film.
Nice.
But a lot of times it's supposed to be like funny and like a plant kind of thing. So it has a cheesy name for a reason, I feel like, to some degree. Okay, mine are weird because I had to use a different generator because, again, that one was not for girls. No, they're not. I mean, they're different. One of them actually overlaps Mac, which is funny. But this was the only one I could find that makes girl names because people are assholes.
I was going to point out during the episode that like the female characters in this are pretty ancillary. But I was like, for the time that this documentary was made in 1879, that's kind of women in the Wild West, right?
Did you just call it a documentary?
It's at least a dramatization.
It's at least a dramatization, but yes, a little bit accurate, painfully accurate.
Ken Burns crushed it in this. He was in the action.
Oh my god, y'all! I'm here to dispel the fact that this is a historical documentary. I'm sorry to say, but anyway, okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Annie Ironheart McCoy, Belle Quick Draw Sawyer. I'm actually going to eliminate the one that overlaps you because it's also a Blaze. So we're just going to remove that one. Clara Stormrider Jones. I hate this. Ruby Dust Devil Carson.
Dust Devil. You're just really dirty.
Yeah, like what? Rude. Sadie Steel Spur Lawson. And Jesse Wildfire Hale.
I liked the last two and the first one. I think Ironheart's pretty damn good.
One a lot too.
Annie Ironheart McCoy.
That's sick.
Jesse Wildfire Hale. Sadie Steel Spur Lawson. Were those the ones?
Steel Spur's pretty. Sadie Steel Spur's pretty cool. You don't need the last name.
Lawson. No, I think Lawson's good too because it's very lawman. Very like Wyatt Earp-esque.
Yeah. I don't know.
I also like Ironheart, and I like Steel. I don't know. What do y'all think? I like both.
I like the alliteration in Sadie Steel Spur Lawson, but Ironheart's a pretty badass. But I didn't like the rest of the name. I would lean Steel Spur. What about you?
Let's Steel Spur it up. Plus, she's moderating everything. We got our Lawson here.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. All right, Sadie Steel Spur Lawson. That's your girl. Also, fun fact: Josephine Marcus, who ends up being Wyatt Earp's partner, went by Sadie. So that's nice.
Well, there you go.
Okay. All right. Steel Spur, Buckaroo, Blaze. I like it. These are
Go
fun.
kill some motherfuckers.
Oh, all right. Thanks for playing, friends. Welcome back to We Drink and We Watch Things. I'm Mackenzie.
I'm your Huckleberry.
Okay. You stole it. Like,
Somebody had to say
that.
it first. Somebody had to say it first.
Fine. We also have another Huckleberry here. Mr. Mac Marsh joining us as our honored guest yet again. He's
Proud
back.
to be here.
Here to be my Western wingman. Ooh, that's also we're doing great with the alliterations today, actually.
I also feel like Mac is probably the more Huckleberry here because I'm here every week, but Mac is the man for the job this week.
You are the man for the job. It's totally true. And also, if you don't remember, guys, he was here for The Sandlot as well, which was also a really fun episode.
90s banger after 90s banger, Mac.
That's right. That's right. Coming in like Doc Holliday in the last scene. He's showing the badge, ready to go.
Oh, I love it. Okay, we're going to have so much fun. I can already tell. I'm so excited. Okay, so we are, if you forgot, continuing our Val Kilmer month with our first Western on the pod ever. And this was like my backdoor way to get Lamar to do a Western was Val Kilmer. And we are covering, if you couldn't tell already, Tombstone. So excited.
Yeah. We did Hateful Eight, which kind of takes place during the same era, but it's not I wouldn't call it a Western by genre standards, right?
No. I think it's like a riff on a Western, you know. Yeah. It's not at all a traditional Western for sure. So I have so many like factoids and I have merch that I will show off through the course of this. We have lots of quotes we are going to share with you. But before we get into all of that, what are we drinking?
We are drinking a complicated beverage here today, provided by at Craft World. There's some steps to this, folks. So get ready.
Some steps.
You're gonna need to chill a rocks glass, in advance because you're going to do something I'd never done before, which is you're gonna wash it with mezcal. So you take it out after a couple hours when it's chilled. Put a half an ounce of mezcal in the glass, shake it around so it coats the glass, dump the mezcal, and then you're basically going to make an old fashioned, but we did like an actual traditional old fashioned, right? 2 ounces of bourbon, sugar cube, and bitters.
It's a riff on a Sazerac, to clarify. So
what's the difference?
A Sazerac is
sugar instead?
Well, Sazerac is like a traditional old fashioned. It's got the muddling that you do with the bitters. You don't have to muddle the bitters with an old fashioned. You can, but the Sazerac is not on a rock. So it's just...
Got it. Okay, so it's the rock and it's the fact that it's muddled as opposed to just stirred in, right? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're going to make a Sazerac and then you're going to strain that into the glass where you had the mezcal formerly, and then we smoked it as well. So I'll put a little video up because I actually did manage to get a cool video of my smoked drink. So by the time you bring it in here, it just looks normal. And then we did a garnish with a lemon, and we are calling this... Are we just calling this Your Huckleberry, or are we calling it Huckleberry, or do we want to call it Doc Holliday?
I'm Your Huckleberry.
All right. Well, this is our second I'm Your Huckleberry reference of the episode. And Mac, I know that you don't drink, so what are you sipping on over there on your end?
Yeah, I kept it plain and simple. This is Trader Joe's lemon elderflower soda. Elderflower felt like it sort of fit.
What a sweet compliment.
Vaguely Western thing. So I don't know. I went with it. It was what was in my fridge.
I love it. Okay, I need y'all before we cheers to appreciate merch piece number 1.
Well, there's number 3.
Very, very nice.
We're gonna set a record for and also shout out to our non-drinking listeners. Thank you for putting up with the rest of us. I know that I can be pretty obnoxious, so thanks for being friends with me, Mac, and others.
It's true.
No problem.
It's true. All right, cheers, friends.
Cheers, y'all.
Clink. Oh, and to clarify for those of you who are not watching, I have an I'm Your Huckleberry mug with a Doc Holliday mustache on it. It's one of my favorite things, like, period, that I own. So, anyway. All right. So what we're going to do, let's take a vote here. Do we need a spoiler free or what? This is 1993, you guys.
It's been a hot minute. I think we can jump right into it.
Great, because I feel like we have lots of comments as we go through all these things. All right, well, turn around, don't drown, guys. It's spoiler time. which means factoids and all the things. So I'm going to blow through some basics. This is a very big cast. So I actually, unless you guys feel strongly, wasn't going to go through like what all have they been in and all of this. I was just going to like, let's blow through some big names, some cameos, start talking about the movie.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Tombstone, 1993, as we said, very highly rated, 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb. 76% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes and 93% from audiences, because fuck yeah, right? It's just a great time. Let's be honest. This is directed by an Italian film director, which is what I would need everybody to understand. This Italian man came in and hot and made this incredible Western, Mr. George P. Cosmatos. And
is this technically a spaghetti Western? Is that what that term means? Like Italian Western films? No, I don't actually know what that means. I don't know if I'm being super racist. I'm just making assumptions. I'm sorry. I'm not a Western guy. I'm sorry, everyone. Don't cancel me.
I was gonna say you're gonna get fired from this already. Sure. Like we're 5 minutes in, and you're already about to get fired. So, no, I'm just kidding. It is actually, if it's made by an Italian filmmaker in like.
Oh, thank God. Okay, well, you made me feel bad. Then I take every apology back. I regret nothing.
It is historically like, but people started to apply it to a lot of different folks. So there is like an Italian Western crossover. Yeah. It was mostly like in the 70s. So it's not like early Westerns are not spaghetti Westerns at all. Okay. Like traditional Westerns, the ones that most people know of as being like famous Westerns, you know, the Charlton Hestons and the John Waynes and all those of the world, Robert Mitchum's, those were traditional. Those were not spaghetti Westerns at all. But I feel like he did a great job with this. He came in and like really made a really authentic film. So this was also written by Kevin Jarre, who we know from a couple of things that we've already done, which is like The Mummy, for example. But so the writing is really solid.
He was one of like the 18 writers on The Mummy. I don't know which iteration he was on, but he did that. He did the original Rambo story, so he gets credit for all of these sequels and stuff, but he doesn't have like that long of a career. He was originally,
and it's crazy because this is so good. Like he writes this script is tight.
Yeah, you know? He was the original director too. He was going to direct his own script, but I guess all he filmed really were the Charlton Heston scenes, and then they replaced him with Cosmatos. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but you know, some of the scenes are still in the movie.
He was notoriously behind schedule. It was his first time directing. He was in over his head, and then they let him go, brought in George, and then famously, after George Cosmatos and lead Kevin Jarre died, Kurt Russell came out and was like, you know what? George was kind of bad too. I actually did most of the direction on this movie. So he came out after and was like, I did most of this, and kind of stepped on both of them.
That's kind of like the most Wyatt Earp thing you can do, is to go out and tell people about how legendary you are. And like, I made this movie. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the vibe, you know? Okay. And then we have a huge fucking cast here of incredible people. Again, why we're going to kind of blow through it. Obviously, Val Kilmer plays Doc Holliday, who we've talked about already. Kurt Russell, Mr. Wyatt Earp.
Did you not want to do? You said you were going to do one Val Kilmer movie that we're not covering every week.
That's true. We're not covering Willow, which is an actual Val Kilmer gem if you haven't seen it. Like, you need to check it out. I feel like it's very divisive as a film. Like, you either really love it and go hard for it, or you hate it. I don't think there's an in-between. Like, I don't think I've met anybody who's like, it's fine.
Didn't they try to make a sequel to that, or a TV series or something recently?
They did make one, but I didn't see it, so I don't know. Sorry. I don't know if it was a series or a movie, but there was a sequel, certainly. But
and I've been throwing out, I know this is only week 2, but I said I was going to throw out a Val Kilmer fact every week. And for this week, I thought it'd be very fitting. He's the only actor to have ever played both Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. So he played Wyatt Earp in a film called Wyatt Earp's Revenge in 2012. That's my Val factoid this week.
I don't know if that was a good decision, to be honest. I actually never saw that, but I feel like this is so well done, and it's also like a little too adjacent to this. I don't know if that turned out well. Mac, did you ever see that? I haven't seen that.
No, I honestly didn't even know it existed.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't until I pulled up the IMDb, so.
Okay. We all learned something new today.
Yeah.
Great. We also have Sam Elliott, who is incredible. We love him. He plays Virgil, the older brother. Bill Paxton, who plays Morgan, little babe Bill Paxton here. And then we've got Powers Booth, which just like, can we just talk about what a great name Powers Booth is? Like, that's just what a badass.
We're gonna talk about him again next week in MacGruber.
We
Get
are.
excited, Mackenzie.
Oh God, fuck off. Yeah, Curly Bill. He plays Curly Bill in this one, and then we have Dana Delaney, who is Josephine Marcus, Sadie, also known by Sadie, as we said. Michael Bean, Johnny Ringo. Stephen Lang, who plays Mr. Ike Clanton. And then we have a bunch of people who I feel like I would say are more like cameos, right?
You can stand in the middle of this set and throw a rock in any direction and hit someone whose name most people would recognize in like the acting world. It's insane.
Right. So, Billy Bob Thornton, Charlton Heston, Frank Stallone, Robert Mitchum is the narrator, who actually originally had a bigger part, unfortunately got injured and couldn't do it. Old Western guy. Billy Zane. And Forey J. Smith, which I think people will know more now because of like he's on Yellowstone and stuff. But he wasn't a super big actor before that, but I think that's why you'll recognize him now. Any other cameos that stood out? There are more, but like those are the big ones to me.
John Corbett, Aiden from Sex and the City. He also is from My Big Fat Greek Wedding. You have Paul Ben Victor, who plays one of the Turks in season 2 of The Wire, and a young Thomas Hayden Church.
The Sandman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would also throw out Michael Rooker.
Yeah,
Walking
dude.
Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy. Jason Priestley from 90210, who again apparently had a bigger role, but that got cut as well. But he seems like he should figure more into the plot and doesn't ultimately. Those are the ones I'd throw out.
Okay, I like it. We all brought some gems. Lots of cameos is the moral of the story.
The last one that I wanted to mention is there is an actor in this named Wyatt Earp, and he is like a fifth cousin of the actual Wyatt Earp, and you could tell he definitely doesn't make a big deal of it and use that to get movie roles or anything, but he's here playing Billy something.
Yeah, I have him in my notes like when he appears later. That's right. Yeah, he's Wyatt Earp the Third, which is interesting. So they the cousins started using the name over and over apparently. So
you know Kurt Russell's son's name is Wyatt too. He's an actor now too. He's been in something we covered, but yeah.
Fun fact.
He's the new Captain America,
cool.
Kind of.
Yeah. He's in Thunderbolts. Yeah.
Oh, I haven't. I've kind of ignored Thunderbolts a little bit because I'm kind of behind in the whole area, so I don't know any of those people. I feel like other than
we did
Florence
Mackenzie.
Pugh.
We did Goon last year. He's in the second Goon, which we haven't watched yet. It's not as good, but he's in that.
Love Goon.
Okay,
I've listened to
let's
the pod.
reference another
Y'all
thing I haven't seen
did
to
a
help me
great job.
understand who we're talking about.
Okay, let me put this in terms you understand. Dawn of the Dead, 2004. He would have been.
If one more person brings up Dawn of the Dead to me, I swear to God.
Why? What's the controversy around Dawn of the Dead?
Oh, you haven't heard our episode where I was the nicest version of myself as we discussed that film.
Why? Do you not like that movie?
I kind of hate it.
What? Why?
Yeah, okay. We're not doing this.
This is perfect.
We're not doing this. We're not going to gang up on me today. This is one of my favorite movies, period, ever. We're only going to be nice to me, okay?
Well, here's the last thing I'll say before we move on from this point. You're wrong. Let's just push forward. Let's just move forward.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mac, I can boot you out of the room, right? Like
yes,
I can just kick you out.
But if you haven't done it by now, then I think we're probably okay. So
Don't test me. Don't test me. Okay. Anyways, quick plot summary. A successful lawman's plans to retire anonymously in Tombstone, Arizona are disrupted by the kind of outlaws he was famous for eliminating.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Sure.
Not bad. Not a bad overview. This was really, like we said, it was very high rated, but it made some buku bucks at the box office. It was $73 million, a little over, against its $25 million budget. So people loved it. And again, this is early 90s. Like, that's a pretty solid run. I think that's a good gem. But I have a question for you guys. In terms of production, I have a fun fact. What do you think connects Tombstone to Twilight?
Is it an actor, a name?
No, it's not an actor.
Well, if I'm picking up what you're putting down, is it location? Is it a location based similarity?
Mm-mm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Were there any baseball scenes in this movie with vampire? I don't recall. But maybe it's in the deleted scenes. No. Okay.
No, Miss Catherine Hardwicke, director of Twilight, is the production designer for Tombstone.
Okay.
And I think it's worth mentioning because she does a really fucking good job. Like, the production design of this film is incredible. And it's one of the first names you see when the credits roll. It's like number 3. Because it's
People
like,
say that about Twilight too. I think it got an Oscar nod for production design.
oh my God.
Dude, drive-by shooting on Ford's Twilight right now.
Wow. I know. Like, we're just roasting Twilight. Like, listen, it's campy as fuck, but it was a fun time when it came out, and solid soundtrack, as we talked about earlier.
Embarrassing fact about myself, I saw Twilight in the theater at midnight when it came out. It's a true story.
Same.
Had you read the
saw-
books and you were just so hyped for it?
It was a forced to be there situation. I was going with a friend who was interested in seeing some ladies that were there. I didn't know these people, but
Ladies,
I was tagged
plural.
along. Yes,
impressive.
it was. I mean, the theater was filled. It was just 14 to 17-year-old girls galore. So that's why I was there.
I mean, that's the target demographic for sure. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I was that person, to be clear. Yeah. I was that person, to be clear, who dragged people to the theater to watch this with me. And I had read the books. They weren't that great, but it was like enough to, it was also like in the era of going to midnight showings. I think that's also part of the thing is like, you just like wanted
time. It
right.
just doesn't feel like it happens
I think
anymore.
They started
Yeah,
doing
it doesn't.
midnight
And,
showings
like,
like
they
at
just open it a day
7
before.
and 8 o'clock now. So you could just go the night before. Like it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what I mean.
That's a good call. Yes.
It's just Thursday night. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. They just did it a whole
exactly.
day early. They're like, whatever, we're too old for this now.
But it like crept up. It was like, okay, we're going to do it at 11. And then it was like 10. And then it was like all of a sudden it just started showing at 7:30 the day before. So it was like, did we just creep it's, people talk about creep in a lot of different ways. That's some starting time creep.
It is. It's like, they still say the release date is, whatever Friday, but now the first showing is definitely 6 o'clock the Thursday before or
There's
whatever.
like the cinephiles that are salty about that of like weekend box office. And I'm like, who really gives a shit about like biggest box office openings? But there's people that are like, oh, that doesn't count. It's Thursday.
I don't think we would call those people actual cinephiles. I think those people have other issues that like, I don't know what they are, but it's just going to see a movie earlier. Like, calm the fuck down. Like,
Whatever. So anyway, Tombstone. Let's talk about this movie. Mackenzie, I was surprised, and Mac, I was surprised when I was watching this. I was taking notes and I hadn't looked at any of the factoids yet. And I had some points that I was critiquing throughout the film of I don't like this scene. This doesn't feel realistic. I don't like this. But then when I go back, I was surprised by how much of this was based on true stories. And I'm sure some of it is myth and legend of people that were there kind of recounting it. And you can't always say it's 100%. But I was shocked by how much of this was a true story. Did you guys get that? Or like, were you already aware of how much of it is true?
I was, because I'm like a Western lore nerd. Like, I've read a lot of the books. Like, I'm kind of like a history nerd about it. So I knew a lot of it. Even like, I obviously didn't see this in '93 when it came out. I was like 4. But when I did first see it, like I had already been reading a lot of books, so I did know a lot of it was true. There's a lot of it that is not true either, though. Even things that people say are true. So I think that's kind of my thing with it is you kind of have to watch it as just a movie, because there is a lot of hyperbole here. But anyway, that's just me. What about you, Mac?
I agree. I didn't know. I mean, I knew that it was very accurate. And then after finishing the film, I went and checked the Wikipedia and I was like, oh, damn, like they got this pretty spot on. And I think if you take out the 2 death montages towards the end of the film, it's like, if those are gone, this thing is like kind of beat for beat, like from the history books, but they just didn't kill that many people. So I enjoyed it for that reason after learning about it after the fact, for sure.
You're talking about the 2 different Godfather death montages that we get.
Yes.
There's hits on all these people and then they run it back because it was so good the first time.
Well, that is a real thing. So like the Wyatt Earp vendetta ride is a whole thing that you can research. That is a real thing that he actually did. Like those same people are involved. Turkey Creek, Jack Vermillion, like these people, Doc Holliday is there. He's not there for all of it because he is sick for part of that. But that vendetta ride is on the whole real, but they do not kill anywhere close to the number of people that they show in this film them killing, and it doesn't last as long as that. It it's not a straight shot as all of that, I should say. It drags out quite a bit longer. And the OK Corral, like the response to the OK Corral, that whole thing drags out quite a bit longer as well. They show that whole thing happening in one night. That's over months. Like those attacks on the Earps are over months. So, but the core is correct, right? Like they get hurt and they get, those things happen the same way, but the timeline and the number of casualties is real different. Yeah.
That's good to know, because one of the things that I didn't understand was during that attack on the Wyatts, why Morgan would go and just play billiards, like play pool right after there was almost a hit attack. I was like, why is this happening in the same night? Yeah.
Right.
He's like, we gotta get out of town.
Rage and take care of them. And
yeah, that was.
And by that, I mean, I'm going to play pool in the other room. Yeah. No, that's a wildly, like, that is literally, so the attack on Virgil is in December. The murder of Morgan is in March, like the following March.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But they do make it look like it's all the same night. So I can see why that feels unrealistic. But it's still a good time. It's so much action and energy. But
I jumped forward so much. Mac, what are your thoughts on the opening of this? I feel is unique. We get kind of a narration and a history lesson on like the small screen, and then it jumps in. But like, any reaction to that?
I was fine with it, but something else I kind of got from the opening scene, at least like the wedding scene and them riding in, is that I don't know if I'm desensitized too much, but like there's a lot of unintentional comedy in this. Like when they jump from the music from the wedding into like how hyperactive the score is over the cowboys riding into that scene, I actually laughed multiple times, and I was like, why is this funny? Like, am I completely like washed away of all sensitivity of like a wedding getting shot up, and then they sit down at the banquet and they're just like, these tamales are great, but like they must have known we were coming. There was a lot of unintentional comedy in that scene, and then I kind of relayed that through the rest of the movie too.
Yeah, the music cues I wrote down can be kind of funny. At anytime somebody gets shot in this, it goes like, okay, we get it. The gunshot told me what happened. You didn't have to drum it up with the score.
It's so fun though. Y'all are making me sad.
No,
we gotta be a little, good and the bad.
Yeah.
I have like in my notes, starting strong with this narration, Wild West, let's fucking go. Yeah. Like I am ready to have a good time with that narration. I'm like, shit is about to go down. They are making it sound so hardcore, like how hardcore the Wild West was, early, Western mob life, basically. And his narration is so great. Like Robert Mitchum, like I said, he's an Old West star. You can just tell like he's got this great gravelly voice, and then the shot of like the cowboys, right? Like, and I think that's so ironic that the last thing you see is like the cowboys shot before you cut to the rest of this, because like they were kind of notoriously bad shots, which we'll talk about later. But I mean, it's just such a great opening, and I love that it like snaps you right into it, at least for me.
That last shot is, and I don't know if you've seen this, Mackenzie, but the Great Train Robbery, that's where that shot is actually from, of the cowboy shooting at the screen. Apparently audiences back in the 30s or whatever were freaked out by that because they thought it could come through the screen, early cinema. But yeah, I love how it goes from that narration on the small screen, and then it just pops into the wide screen of them riding on the horses. I think that's a pretty cool intro. Yeah,
I just love his voice. I think it like really takes you back immediately. And, he was like, he did El Dorado. He was with John Wayne. Like we're talking like old school Western, and a lot of people who watch Westerns at least can hear his voice and know what we're about to get into. And so I think it like really sets the tone, and then you kind of, you snap to this great score. I think that really also, complements that. And you get the history that I think is important of like, why are we all here? The Great Migration, it's 1879. People are leaving the big cities and trying to head west and get, new opportunities and get rich. And so like, this is a silver boomtown and silver boomtown adjacents, like that is why this is happening. People think they're going to go make their fortune. And I think it really sets the tone for, they are ready to make money, and they're driven by greed, and murder rates higher than New York and LA, are such a good teaser into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting thing to explore that I think some movies haven't done before. It's like, here's this lawman, here's this man of integrity and honor and value, and then he's making a decision at the end of his career after he's retired to go take money from people when they're gambling. And it's like the good guy turned greed man is like an interesting sort of evolution of Wyatt Earp, and then he has to revert back, obviously, to his lawman days, pulling the pistol out of the case. Big moment for him, but it's just a fun character exploration to see him go towards the money, which is not typical from any hero's journey.
Yeah, the story in this is, it's not, I think I go into any Western thinking it's just going to be good guys, bad guys, they're going to have a shootout at the end, and that's that. But I loved the conflict in this internally of Wyatt himself, and also with his two brothers. I think that dynamic is really cool, of them trying to convince him to come back to the light side and like defend this town and really achieve justice again. And he's sort of anti that. And then we just have these slow escalations that play out throughout the film where he finally has to put the badge back on. I like that conflict.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, like, for me, there's a lot of really good tethers here, because even though it's kind of not totally factual, so like Wyatt Earp is, what we have to understand is that Wyatt Earp had the best PR machine in the history of mankind, which is his wife, Josephine Baker, who's threatened litigation on every single person who ever tried to write about them. And largely because we think she was a prostitute for a lot of this time and she didn't want people to know, right? So she, and other things, like there were lots of other things that happened that they felt were questionable. And so she didn't want the majority of these things to be made. The inspiration for the Wyatt Earp we know today is the one biography that is very flattering that she did allow to be published, right? So, and a lot of that was her like lobbying people about it. But what I think is nice about this movie, the tether, is that he was in Texas and in Dodge City, and he was a lawman for a while, but he wasn't this like famous lawman who's being recruited everywhere that he goes. It's actually Virgil who has the more experience in terms of being a town marshal. So it's not surprising to me that Virgil is the one that snaps too. So I just look at it more with Wyatt Earp, the actual man, is that he's not so much reverting to being greedy. He's just like, this is the next job I'm going to do. You know what I mean? Like, this is my new next job, and I want my brothers to do it with me. But I do think they do a really good job of telling that story here of like, I have seen some shit and I'm ready to make some money. I love his like, I already have a guilty conscience. I may as well have the money too.
Great
like,
line.
Just such a good line. Such a good line. You
said that piece about Wyatt Earp sort of self-promotion, and that's why I made the joke earlier about Kurt Russell going around telling people I directed this film, because that's kind of what Wyatt Earp did later in his career. When Westerns started getting made, he was on these movie sets and talking about his own legend and influencing people like John Wayne and whatnot. I think sometimes I suck at history, but you forget about like how much overlap there was in these time periods of, oh, he's still alive when movies start getting made. So
yeah, the two they mentioned at the end, William S. Hart and Tom Mix, are big Western movie stars at this time with whom he became actually truly really good friends. But a part of that was him trying to get them to make movies about him. Like,
can we talk about how they shame Tom Misk? I feel like that's like throwing shade when they're like, he wept. He was
the last line of the movie.
Like, in a cowboy movie, they're like, he cried, and it just feels a little shaming. I know that's not the intention, but
is it supposed to be? I was like, I feel like it's
not
like
at
this
all.
macho guy cried because he loved Wyatt, you know?
Yeah.
But it was very like, and there's like a theme in this movie that I can't quite put my finger on. But like the best way I can explain it is like, it feels like a real kaleidoscope of a movie. And that's what you get when you have a director who got fired and another who got kind of usurped by Kurt Russell telling him what to do every day. And it's like, there's so much of this movie that's funny, but also not meaning to be funny, self-serious, also awesome, but also really kitschy and campy, but also like fits, but doesn't. So there's multiple points of this where I'm just like, is this good? Oh yes, it's awesome. But then at the end, I'm like, but why close on that line? Like, it's just kind of weird. It doesn't feel like there's one vision for the movie, which is kind of in theme with all the behind the scenes stuff.
Mac and I were talking before we started recording, and I said, for the few Westerns that I have seen, it does always feel like there's an element of kitsch. You have to go in knowing it's going to be a little full of machismo. It's going to be a little cheesy. That's just sort of par for the course. But I'm with you. I feel like there are shots in this that are meant to be and moments that are meant to be so much more impactful and thrilling than they actually are. One that I would call out, which I think is a great looking shot, but it doesn't land for me, is when he's got Morgan's blood on his hands. He's walking around in the rain. It's pouring. And the woman comes over, get away from me. And then his wife comes over and just walks away awkwardly. Like, I get what they're going for, but it just doesn't, moments like that don't hit the way they should for me.
I can see that in terms of the film itself. Again, knowing some of the history, feel like that makes sense. They're trying to condense into one shot months of that breakdown of that relationship and how his relationship with Josephine also temporarily breaks down. So like they had a full-blown affair. It was like pretty much common knowledge. He wasn't legally married to Maddie. So I think like there's arguments to be made that it wasn't an affair, but he ultimately does kind of abandon Maddie. And so I think they're trying to show a lot in a short period of time, but I agree that scene can be like kind of doesn't fit, kind of cheesy for that moment. But what I'm learning about hearing you guys talk is that I am so fucking biased because I am not open to criticism of this movie. I am very like, this is a fucking amazing movie and you're both wrong. And I'm getting there. I'm going to calm down. It's fine.
Like,
Anyway.
let me say something else that I recognize is like, I would readily admit that I think I'm probably in the wrong or incorrect about some of my criticisms of this movie. So like, I'll kind of recognize that I'm on a hill up here being like, Tombstone, low-key overrated. But it's like this second viewing helped me turn a corner. The first time I watched Tombstone, I was like, this movie's not good, maybe like at all. And then this second time I was like, oh, this rips. There's parts of this where I'm like, this is super sick. And then I went back to the montage scenes and the theater scene and like some of the stuff that's just like, why is this here? And then I'm like, oh, okay. Like this is why I kind of maybe didn't love it the first time. So like, I recognize, Mackenzie, that this is a minority opinion. And I'm not saying the movie's not good. It is good. But I think that people talk about Tombstone like it's Shawshank, and I disagree.
It's 80% of a perfect film, and then 20% of stuff that could be changed or fixed.
It's too long.
And even when you look at rankings, I was curious because, again, from the few, I've seen probably 5 Westerns in my life, and I haven't seen a lot of the all-time greats. This is one of the better ones I've seen, but again, this isn't my genre. But when you look at rankings, some people will take Westerns and put this at like number 3 or number 4. Others don't even have it in their top 50, depending on which list you're looking at online. So I think it is a little divisive, to Mac's point.
I think some people are Western purists. I think is the thing to keep in mind,
like the older
right?
shit.
Like,
They don't like the more,
and that's why a
Hollywoodized,
Tombstone is not. Yeah, like people are not going to put a modern Western, whether that's Young Guns or this or Silverado or 310 to Yuma. Like those are not going to make a list with El Dorado, right? Like those are different lists. So I think that's what you're running into with that more often than not, is that people are purists. And I appreciate both personally, but yeah, they are very like, they're a very different energy. And I think the thing that Tombstone does really well is it modernizes the Western. And I mean that in terms of like, you get more realism. I know there's those campy shots and some themes and some things that you're like, this isn't realistic, but they're more realistic and more authentic to the period than movies that came before it oftentimes. And I think like, that's what it's funny. I watched a making of about this movie and everyone on the set was so convinced of the authenticity of this film. They were like, the costumes are accurate. The history is accurate. We know everything about our characters. And like, that's a little bit not true, but I just think it speaks to like their commitment of they were trying to be as authentic as possible when they made this one.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing that they were, and like I've heard before, that they wanted to make this as like serious as The Godfather. Like it's funny, like Lamar, you mentioned Godfather.
Western
earlier.
Godfather.
Yeah, they wanted to make this the Western Godfather. And like, that's kind of bleeds into the film a little bit. But Mackenzie, like to me, it's less about its authenticity and like, it is genuine in a lot of the things it does from a production and setting standpoint. Great. But like that rain scene is like, it's almost unearned.
It's excessive.
In a way. Yeah. It's just like a little cringe. It took me right out of the movie.
I think it's because you don't actually see the affair.
Sure, yeah.
You don't see the affair that has happened at this point. And
Very
I think that's the disconnect there, is like, that is a really serious breakdown in these, like both of these relationships in real life, but you don't get that in the movie. And I think I haven't looked into it, but I assume it was cut. You know what I mean? Like I assume they did more with Josephine than you actually see, because the only thing they really give us here in this film, and I would agree with this criticism if you're trying to fully tell the story, is you only get that like one-on-one scene with them that is very cute and romantic. And yes, he's kind of falling for her, but you don't get a ton more of that throughout to really sell that relationship becoming what it did.
Yeah, and sometimes they do a thing in movie making, and this was much more prevalent in the 90s, I think, before anti-heroes became that much more mainstream, is they wouldn't want to show the hero doing something nasty like that.
Yep.
Like Maddie's right
Yeah.
there. If he has the affair, he's the bad guy now. People
He
are
can't
gonna
be flawed.
He can't be flawed. No, he can't make a mistake like that.
Right.
Because then
Right.
he's not the protagonist. He's like part of the bad guy. So like that may be a reason. I don't know this, but that may be a reason why they didn't show the affair. They kept it clean as a break.
I think that's a good call out because, like, if you look at most other characters, I think the one exception being Doc Holliday, which we need to get to, but I think on the whole, these characters are very black and white. You know, the cowboys are all bad. The Earps are
That was
all
like the plot
good.
twist for me, guys. The cowboys are the bad guys. I was playing as a kid all wrong. Like, what a plot twist! Insane.
Yeah, here it's all bad. It's all bad. And but if you think about, for example, Clanton, who's played by Stephen Lang, and he's funny, and he's kind of like got that unintentional humor that we're talking about, but he is funny, is like, people are the history of him is quite complicated, right? Like he is kind of a bad guy, but he's also a guy who found refuge in the cowboys. It's kind of like the way a lot of gangs are, of like, I don't have a family, this is my family. And so he is not in real life all bad, but in this movie, they're all bad and they're all good. And I think the only exception is Doc. And I think the reason he gets away with it is, one, Val Kilmer steals the fucking show.
He does.
And two, he is very aware of himself, and he's very accepting of himself. And also he's dying, right? Like, he gets a pass because he's dying this whole time. And so I think he's the only character who gets to be a little gray, you know?
And he takes full advantage of that. Can we just
Fuck yeah.
we got to dig into Val
Let's
and his role
have the
here,
conversation
because
now.
That's really why we're here.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
He
Let's
takes
just-
whatever this movie would be rated in my mind and adds 2 points to it out of 10. And he just oozes confidence from the get-go, that initial gambling scene, and the way that he is so nonchalantly needling people and talking a little bit of shit just to annoy them, because he knows that if anything happens, he's the fastest draw, he's going to kill them.
Yep.
So he's just kind of, throughout the film,
hyper
his
confident.
confidence. Yeah.
And he's earned it. It's real, right? Like, it's for a good reason. That scene, that first scene, that is a real thing that happens. He really kills that guy, but he's actually less guilty than even that scene shows. Like, he seems like he's, just in terms of what happened, like, he was kind of defending himself, but it's got that touch of like, they're still robbing the place. They're still stealing some horses. Like, they're still doing some shit, but he gets away with it. Like, immediately you're charmed by him.
Yeah, it's quite a character intro of him with the gun, not using the gun, and then just stabbing the dude to death, like straight up.
Slices his stomach open.
And then
straight up.
after taking his poker winnings at the table, he just like looks over his piles of money. He just like grabs them too, walks out. He's like, what does he say? He's like, all right, good night then. And then leaves.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what a fucking intro
Good evening.
from this guy.
Like, what? And then they're like, let's not even bother with the luggage. Like, let's just, you know, and that she also like, let's take a moment for the women here, because they're not going to get a lot of attention.
Yeah.
She's
great.
She's great. She is a real person. Yet again, Big Nose Kate was her nickname. She is a Hungarian
That's
woman.
fucking
Yep,
hurtful.
that was her
Kinda
nickname.
rough.
It is hurtful. Also, if you look at a picture of her, it's not that big. Okay, like, I'm offended because that would be me too. But anyways, she was a bad bitch. Like, she was actually a bad bitch, and she's kind of this little bit evil person in this film as well. But she was like Doc's match. He told people that. He was like, because he was very educated, he was really smart. She was like his intellectual equal, and she also wanted to live on the wild side, and she was fearless. She broke him out of the actual, like, he was actually jailed after this at one point. This is a much longer timeline. He was actually jailed in a hotel. She set fire to a building to distract them and get him out. So Big Nose Kate is like a bad bitch, actually. And I wish that in this she got a little bit more credit for how hardcore she is. But I like their pairing in terms of like this, they feed off of each other. And that's kind of how we get to Tombstone a little bit for him.
Yeah, I think that Doc's story as well is kind of the secondary plot in this of what side is he going to fall on? How much of a lawman is he? He seems very I mean, he's literally anti-hero, right? He's got all these tendencies and vices, and we're watching him drink himself to death. And just to see him consider whether he's on these people's sides, and it just seems like it's past relationships, right, that's putting him on this. It's just him and Wyatt are old buddies, so like I guess I'm with you. But his loyalty throughout this is incredible, and I just think watching his narrative throughout and seeing his confidence waver a little bit when he meets Johnny in that first dinner, like he's not really sure if I'm better than. I feel like that's how I read it. By the end we know the truth, but I do feel like it's the one time where he sort of questions where he's gonna fall by the end of this.
Disagree. Hard disagree.
I was gonna say I disagree.
I think he knows the whole time he's better, and that's why he just
than this young idiot.
Yeah, he does the low key flex. He doesn't have to pull out his gun. He's like, "Do what you do, Johnny."
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. If you do the Latin translation of that scene, which is one of my favorite scenes, by the way, they are having this whole subtext conversation, right? Like this is this young dude trying to threaten Doc Holliday, and he is like, literally, if you translate it and you want to interpret it a little bit, I have a whole translation. I won't make you live through it. But anyways, he's kind of like, you're beneath me. It's not worth me pulling my gun on you, kid. Like, I will kill you. It's your funeral. It's like Latin for it's your funeral. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like he has zero confidence issues with this guy. And this guy is afraid of him. He's posturing, right? Ringo is afraid of Doc. And you see it here a little bit, but he is posturing. And later you see it for real. Like he is afraid of this man.
So two things. One, like, I was waiting to kind of pull this out, but like I had a whole thought of like, I've been watching a ton of anime lately and I've been like really into it. But like our Westerns kind of the same as anime is like a thing I had. I wrote down like 10 similarities, right? Like a huge thing in anime is there's always a character that's like grossly overpowered than the rest of them. And he's always like the big badass. And like that's Doc. And Johnny Ringo's the bad guy version of that. So like their standoff before the standoff ends up being a thing that you chase in the movie. And that's always like the fight before the fight, the stare down, all the different stuff they're doing, the posturing, like you said, Mackenzie, is a lot of the things that there's a crossover point. And there's like character attributes. Like Wyatt's got the confidence and he's a badass and everyone's afraid of his reputation, but Doc's got the gun skills. At the last of it, you know, before they go to the Johnny Ringo fight, he's like, I can't beat him, can I? And Doc's like, probably not. And what they're saying,
he's like, no, you can't.
He's like, you can't. He's like, but I could. I'm so sorry. I'm in this bed. But he pulls it out anyway in the big fight scene later. Like vengeance, vendetta, rivalries. That's all stuff that happens too. But like properly staging a fight and properly staging a moment. Of course, that's going to be there for any storytelling mechanism. But I'm just sitting here saying, like, with those combinations of things, it's just like this almost felt like anime light to me. And I was like, this is actually really cool with like the power scaling stuff they're doing in Tombstone.
I think what's cool about it, to your point, is that like there's some, like you're saying, like there's a formula here a little bit. And they're following a similar formula to tell this story. And I think what's really interesting to me, the nerd, is like they're not having to stretch it that much to tell a good story. You know what I mean? They are stretching it certainly, but they're not stretching it that much. Like this was a real rivalry, right? Like this was a real thing that the reputations were out there. These conflicts were had, and there is a running theory that Doc Holliday did kill Johnny Ringo, even though his death was ruled a suicide. So, but you get that illusion in that scene. And that's what I love, is like, we're adopting this theory because Doc Holliday is our hero a little bit here, but he says like, he just couldn't do it. You know, he makes all these allusions in his script there of, you know, he was just overcome. Like he's propagating the suicide theory right then, you know, from the take. But there are theories that Wyatt Earp did it, and there's theories that Doc Holliday did it, and the actual cause of death was a suicide. And if you see it in the movie, that's where he's shot, right? He's shot in a way that makes it look like a suicide. So I think it's very intentional of marrying this storytelling to this history in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So I will stand corrected that maybe the words that I chose to explain the confidence, maybe it's just the way that the writing and the story in this is showing his declining health. So maybe it's not so much that he's questioning his own confidence, but it's like we as the viewers are not sure if he's going to make it to the final showdown, sort of what Mac was talking about. So I'll concede on that one, but I have not yet begun to defile myself. I'll probably fuck up a few more times on this podcast. But I want to segue because you guys brought up Johnny, and I wrote down every villain in this. If you want to call them villains, I know it's gray areas, but whether it's Curly or Johnny or Ike or even the Billy Bob Thornton gambler who gets like 3 scenes, they are all so perfectly cast and represented. It feels like a video game boss level of like we're working our way up. But I wrote down no one here is miscast. They're all great.
No, they're all perfect. And like even the Billy Bob Thornton, like you said, it's such a short encounter, but it is so impactful. It tells us so much about so many people, right? Wyatt is also hyper confident, right? He doesn't need to quote go heels to get this guy, right? And he literally bitch slaps him.
Multiple
and
times.
This kid does fucking nothing about it, right? He's a little bitch. And then he
Say
has
the
to go
line,
get
Mac.
it.
Say the line, Mac.
Smoke that skin wagon. See what happens to you.
I was gonna go with you're gonna do
perfect.
something. And you're just gonna stand there and bleed.
Yeah, that's a good one
Sake,
too.
both of those.
Yeah.
The whole scene is so quotable and it's great. But then we get to the next most quotable scene where he's coming to get him. And this is my favorite part. He's like, Johnny Tyler. And like everybody stops, right? And like it's this great moment where he's like, oh, I apologize. I forgot you were there. You may go now. You know, like it's the you may go now for me. And it just speaks to the Doc dynamic, the fact that this kid is a fucking flea, like they don't care. And who Doc is, who Wyatt is, like it is a 5-minute stretch that just like, at least for me, you're like enamored by your heroes at the end of this. You're like, these are all so great. They're all so perfect for these roles, for sure.
For sure, yeah. Is there any harder diss you could hear in your life than "I forgot you were there"?
I forgot you were there.
That's pretty
And I
harsh.
love Wyatt just being like, leave it.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, he tries to hand it to him, and he's like, no, leave it.
He says it,
Leave
then
it.
he doesn't,
Like a
and then he
dog.
says it again. Leave the gun.
Leave it.
Yeah.
And he's like, thank you. Like it's also the thank you for me of like, thank you for not killing me. Thank you for not doing, whatever. It like, it's just, it's such a great scene and everyone is perfect in it. Yeah.
I was trying to remember what's that famous Mad Men line where the person says to Don Draper, "I pity you," and he's like, "I don't think about you at all." That's kind of the same.
He says,
energy,
"I feel
right?
bad for you," and he goes,
Yes.
"I don't think about you at all."
I don't think about you at all. Yeah.
But I
100%.
wanted to also, I love me some Powers Booth. I feel like he's such a great villain in everything, whether it's like Sin City or he's going to be in a Gruber. He's not really a villain, that's spoiler. But even in Deadwood, he's sort of on the line. I was going to say earlier, there is no Deadwood without this film. I feel like if Tombstone doesn't get made, there's no Deadwood series. And that, for as much as I say I don't love Westerns, that's one of my all-time favorite series. It's so fucking good. But Powers Booth in this, given big time Tim Curry energy, am I misreading that? His evil laugh and the way he delivers some of the lines is so laid back Tim
I could
Curry.
see it.
Yeah. Their faces are both very angular and very sharp with how they inflect. So, like, I could see that, no doubt. It's a good call out.
But I like your call out about like the laid back energy, right? Like I think that is the energy of like he don't give a fuck,
When they leave town and he's just like, "Well, bye."
Well,
bye.
bye.
I'm like I could hear Frankenfurter in my head saying that,
Literally, like Mac. Fun fact: Lamar and I watched MacGruber this week together so that I could get through it and not rage. And they're like, and Powers Booth enters the chat, and I was like, all I can hear is him saying, "Well, bye." Like we were like, it's just such a great line. And he has all these other great lines as well. They're very different. They're not Doc Holliday witty, but they're cutting, and they're cutting in how casual they are, how much he doesn't care what he just said to you, and how he doesn't care that he could say the one wrong thing and everybody's gonna start shooting.
Yeah. Yeah, he's instantly hateable, but also someone you like when he's on screen. That's a hard thing to do, to be like, you fucking
you want to see him,
hate him, but when he's there, you're like, I'm really glad he's on screen right now.
Yeah, you want to see him. You want to like talk about him and you want to spend time with him. I think like one of the things I noticed on this watch more than I have ever noticed before though about him is like how many homosexual references there are between him and other people that I think are really subtle actually.
Hmm.
But I think that they're there. And I was like, I kind of wanted to gut check that with y'all of like, he had, you know, Sister Boy, he's protecting Sister Boy. And he's kind of like, he's vaguely threatening to everybody, including Sister Boy, but he is also kind of flirting. You know what I mean? And he's like, prettiest man I ever saw. And he like flirts with him later and compliments him later and he protects Sister Boy. This is a kid who is like very clearly effeminate at the very least, if not being called out as being fully gay. And he's welcoming of that and he defends them. And that's the only reason that that kid is even around this group of people. And there's a couple other things that I noticed that I was like, Curly Bill got a crush? Like Curly Bill got a thing going on? Like I think there's like some subtle subtext there that maybe wasn't intentional, but actually was a cool new layer for me of also to some degree his posturing of like, I have to be this person in this society. Like I have to do this in this gang.
I didn't read into it the same thing as you, Mackenzie. And again, this is my second time watching this. But to my point, I read Tim Curry energy and my favorite Tim Curry role is Frankenfurter. So who's to say? I don't know, Mac, what do you think?
I got all the homosexual energy from is Sister Boy the guy with the glasses who was okay?
Jason Priestley. So is it Jason Priestley or is it his brother?
I don't know.
Jason. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it? Okay.
So I watched him and I was like, yo, like, yeah, they're clearly throwing up the rainbow flag here. But I didn't catch that from from Curly Bill. Now that you say it, I'm like, damn, that like really.
This was my first time, to be fair.
Low key fits. Because it matches his bravado in like a funny way.
Right, that's what I mean. Of like, he's got a flamboyance to him.
Could also,
you know what I mean? It's a different kind, but
there's
it's a
that scene where he stumbles out, wasted and shoots, and maybe that's like, you know, the coping factor of we don't know how out he might be. So I think there's something to that theory. Maybe it's like a self sort of destructive tendencies of not trying to fit into this group of cowboys while maintaining who you are as a person. Just a thought.
The theater scene for me was like the thing that made me notice it this time. And again, I have never really thought about it before. This was the first time. But he like stands up and is like, his jaw is on the floor watching Billy Zane. You know what I mean? It's like a guy who is like walking a girl in a scantily clad outfit walking by is like his jaw is on the floor watching her. It was that kind of energy, but directed at Billy Zane. And he's got his Sister Boy gay friend that's right next to him. And I was like, what is happening? But he does a great job because again, like you said, it's like this bravado and you don't get anything else from that, but it's just like, there's some subtle little teasers in there. I feel like that I thought were fun.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the American Gladiators ever took nights at the theater, but these cowboys did. So who knows? Maybe it's a culture thing, you know?
Speaking of subtle things in the movie, there was a couple things that I wanted to call out. Is like there's a part where Wyatt Earp sees Dana Delaney and he looks at her and then they mention like, you know,
what will you do if she comes in here?
He says, I'll be damned. And Doc goes, if you're lucky. And so that's like it's like she's danger. And then in their one-on-one scene later, she says, you wouldn't be willing to die for fun. And he just goes, oh. Like that's an inside joke for him.
Yeah.
When he hears that, it's like, oh, okay. Like, yes, she's with me in this kind of like towing the line of we're going to maybe see how far this goes. And it may be to our mutual destruction, but I'll die for fun. Fuck it.
I'll play. Yeah. And I think that's true. Like their dynamic really, like when they say at the very end, like they spent 46 years having adventures together, that is not an exaggeration. They opened saloons, they closed saloons, they went to mining towns, they did all kinds, and she was in it with him. Like she was looking for adventure. And the fact that she sort of pulls him into that in this version of events is one, not at all surprising, but two, like really well done. It opens up for our Wyatt in this film a whole new world of like, do we just travel the world and fuck around, you know?
For as much as we said the female characters are a little ancillary, I do like their conversation about what she knows, what she wants. She's like, I like men. I've had sex with multiple men. It's a different woman than he's used to. And I think that in a way is ahead of its time, not just in the 1800s, but also for 1993. Female characters.
But they make these subtle points here about all the women, right? Like the sisters who are, or the wives that could be sisters rather, of all the Earps, and then her as well. They were all, it's important to note, at some point prostitutes, right? So like they make a comment at the beginning. Baby. Yeah, like they're sex workers. Let's be honest. Let's use the right language. But like they make that comment earlier on of like, where do you think you found her? And it's like, probably where we found ours, right? Like this is, the Wild West was wild in all ways, right? Like, let's just be clear. It was Vegas to the max with guns. You know what I mean? And I like that they commit to that here of like, there's opium dens and there's saloons and there's gambling and there's shooting. And like, we are not, you know, in a cosmopolitan place, right? Like just, I love that Doc kind of points that out. They're like all trying to pretend that they're in this high class town. And he's like, very cosmopolitan. And like, he's so good at like calling those things out. And while being a dapper gentleman himself, because he was a Southern gentleman.
Yep. Before we move off the point of the relationship and what Wyatt kind of did with both Maddie and the other character, have y'all ever done what he does, where he goes and meets a new interesting person? Hundreds of times. Sure.
You didn't know Lamar is a hoe, actually.
I didn't know. I didn't know Lamar was a prostitute. But he goes to have an interesting conversation with her, and he loves what he experiences with her. And he talks about the room service, and he talks about all these details. He brings all that back to Maddie.
Back to his existing partner.
And then Maddie shuts it down, and he's just like, fuck. Like, man, I don't know if I'm really, like, in this anymore. Have y'all ever done that? Like, taken something you found from an opposing gender person back to your current partner, and then been left wanting?
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If I'm being honest, for
definitely
sure.
Have
like,
done that.
Been inspired by somebody's like suggestion that's in passing or something, and you're like, "Ooh, that could be interesting," and you go bring it up, like, however innocent or not, like whatever it is, and then they're like just not into it, and you're like a sad panda. It's like the Kermit meme, you know, the little sad Kermit of you're like, when I tell this person this thing that I'm all excited about. Yeah, totally been there.
There's like different types of people, not just relationship wise, but solo, what you want out of life. And there's some people that prefer just comfort and not complacency, but just, hey, I like what I have and I'm good with this. I don't need to explore outside of my state. And there's other people, like three of us, I assume, that want to see the world and do as many adventures as possible. So you got to find somebody that matches that energy for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. But I also think the thing that's cool, to your point about like not giving enough credit to the women here, I think that's the cool thing about her impact in this film specifically. And we don't know this historically, but in this film specifically, she opens that up for Wyatt. And I think that's really cool. Like, he didn't know that, right? He thinks he just wants to make money and he wants to settle down and he's perfectly fine with Maddie. Like, he seems content with her. It's fine. But he doesn't realize until she opens up that new possibility for him that maybe he does want that more, you know? And I think that like just speaks to their adventurous spirits that align more than his and Maddie's, you know? And it's sad for Maddie because she, as we know, does not last much longer than this. And she tells people on her deathbed that Wyatt Earp ruined her life, in case you were curious.
Damn.
So it did not end well.
I would blame the opium, but okay.
Well, yeah,
sure.
The laudanum.
The laudanum and the alcohol. She kept doing that. And that's why she died.
Mac, you had something. I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to say, like, Maddie kind of catches a bad beat in this movie. Like, gets moved across where she can't get her drugs anymore, has to try to get them somehow. And then, like, substance abuse awareness was so bad that it's just like she's just stuck doing opiates. Yeah, no dare. And then all of a sudden, the last thing you hear as Wyatt Earp is dancing with her in the snow, the line cuts in. Maddie dies of a drug overdose. I was like, bruh.
Well, that's one thing I don't like about the ending of this, to the point earlier about the rain scene. that dancing in the snow and bringing back lines from earlier in the movies is one of the most movie feeling things about this, where we're walking this line of history versus cinema. That ending does not land for me. I feel like the more interesting ending is him and Doc's final moments when he's in the hospital bed. I feel like that was such a powerful moment, and then we cut to this very cheesy Hollywood ending.
I also think I think in this movie, acting is a euphemism for prostitution. So, like, she was not a working actress at this time. She had been a dancer and she was not a working actress. And, like, he doesn't come find her on tour of her acting. He goes back to San Francisco, where she's from, and finds her there. So, like, that's the other thing for me of, like, it's this very, like you said, it's a very movie moment that is pretty inaccurate. And yeah, the narration over it is kind of rough. And the way that those other things end are all pretty bitter and all pretty sad. But like, you could addendum that. I could see you cutting that off a little bit, but you do have to show that they reunite, because I do think that that's fair to say. Like, they do reunite. They do spend the rest of their lives together. And like you said, thinner flesh through thicker thin, they really did. They went through booms of their own of having a ton of money, and then times where they were really poor, and they just kept traveling and they stuck together the whole time. So I think it's worth acknowledging that relationship and what it became, for sure. But I also think you brought up a great point that we should spend a minute on, which is the bromance of Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, personally. They love each other. I'm not saying they're in love with each other. I'm saying they love each other, and they respect each other, even though, like we said earlier, they're so different. You know, they come from different backgrounds and they have different goals, and one of them is literally dying. And but they love each other very much. And I love the line that Doc says later of where he's talking to some of the other Vendetta writers, and he's like, he's like, hell, I got a lot of friends. Like, you should be in bed. And he's like, I don't. Like, he's so loyal to Wyatt because he's so important to him in his life.
That is written down as my favorite line of the movie. Not even kidding, right here. So I got a lot of friends. I don't. Favorite line of the movie.
There's
it's so good.
Perfect time to mention an actual real life quote from Wyatt about Doc Holliday, saying, Doc was a dentist, not a lawman or an assassin, whom necessity had made a gambler, a gentleman whom disease had made a frontier vagabond, a philosopher whom life had made a caustic wit, a long, lean, ash-blonde fellow nearly dead with consumption, and at the same time the most skillful gambler and the nerviest, speediest, deadliest man with a six-gun that I ever knew. And I think that speaks to the real-life bromance and respect and love these guys had for each other.
Super sick.
Yeah. So true. I have that quote like highlighted and in bold in my notes as well, because it's like, I do think it's so emblematic of their relationship. And like you said earlier, the things that Doc inserted himself in at a time where he, again, was literally dying and had no business or need to do, he did purely out of loyalty to this man that he loved in his own right, in his own way. And I think that what was interesting to me is like, you just see that evolve in the ways that they protect each other in this film. And he respects him at the very end. He really he is still going to see him. He's poor. He doesn't have anything anymore. They're saying, playing poker in the sanatorium, and he's dying, and he asks him to leave, and he does. And like, in that context, like, that was him loving him. And I thought that was a really beautiful, like you said, that's a really beautiful, profound scene that I think really ties up in a bow their bromance and how much they love each other. And I love that they add in the little nugget of Doc saying, well, I'll be damned about his boots, because he didn't die with his boots on, And if you don't know, if you're not like a cowboy person, like the thing is that cowboys, outlaws, they die with their boots on, right? And Doc Holliday always thought he was going to die in a shootout. He was going to die with his boots on. So he's, lying in bed.
Actual last words, and the last note I kind of have in mind, the reason I'm jumping to this is that everything that, like I said, I wrote down that I was like, did that really happen? Is apparently true. So I didn't love on watching the film when Wyatt just goes, no, over again and marches out into the river and manages to, I read that it was
It's not.
Correct me, Mackenzie. They said
I was
this
gonna
is
say
like
neither of those are totally true. The last words of Doc Holliday are just contested. Like a lot of people believe that is what he said. So I'm not gonna say one way or the other, but it is contested. But that fight is actually very different. He does kill Curly Bill with a shotgun the same way. There's like notes about how it almost cuts him in half. It's kind of crazy, and it intimidates the other cowboys so much that they do try to escape because they're like, "Holy shit!" But he literally rode in on a horse and did that, and he shot him from behind his horse. And so then he comes out, and they weren't really in a crossfire. It was just that there were cowboys already there, and they were outnumbered. So like all the other guys do go down, and there is a lot of shooting that happens. But this is the thing I was alluding to earlier, is that the crux of the matter is that the cowboys are all really bad shots because they shot over and over at all those other guys, and they scraped McMaster's. It was actually McMaster. They scraped McMaster and they scraped Doc, but they didn't actually make contact with anyone. And so the lore is that his Wyatt Earp's coat is like shot through with buckshot and torn to shreds, and his pommel on his saddle is blown off, and all these things. Those things seem to be close to true.
Is it true that he was never actually shot in all his years as like a lawman, and like that
he was never shot,
hit with a bullet?
He was never shot. That is true. He was never shot, but he doesn't run out into the river. Bill, like Curly Bill, is in the river and he gets shot and he falls into the river, but he doesn't run into the river, and then he gets back on his horse and retreats. Actually.
Okay, then I'm going to go back to my initial thought, which was I don't like that scene. I don't like the Jesus monologue that follows of, look, he's untouchable. It's a miracle. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my original
Hollywood
opinion.
Of it all. Yeah. You got to Hollywood it up a little bit. Yeah. Come on. He does get out unscathed, which is pretty wild. Like, again, with the number of people who are there and how many shots they did fire, because they just didn't make contact, and that is pretty insane. And he wasn't behind his horse the whole time. He just was when he hit Curly Bill. Then he does come out, So it is still a pretty miraculous gunfight, actually, that he comes out unscathed. Same with the OK Corral. That was a 30-second gunfight. And that is the thing that they are actually the most honest about. That is a very accurate scene. It is next to that filmography studio. It's not at the OK Corral, fun fact. Like, it's not like that. It's 6 blocks down from the OK Corral, but it all backs up to the same place. And so but the sequence of events and the people involved in the fight and the way they do or do not go down is very accurate. That is very well shot.
The whole "you're a daisy if you do" that line.
He says that
in real life.
He does say that.
Which is like, I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But apparently he says so. Like, yeah, more power to you if you manage to kill me here. I thought that was neat.
Also, it's Mac, just his confidence again. It's just shit talking again.
Can we talk? I want Mac's opinion on Ike, who I think is the funniest character in this. He just gets given a pass so many fucking times. And when he does that in the gunfight, when they're like, if you're not going to fight, get the fuck out of here. And he goes inside and starts shooting. It's such a dick move. But Mac, talk about Ike for a second. What are your thoughts?
I mean, Stephen Lang, right? Like it's hard to put people, to even have people recognize him as the person who's like one of the more notable people on Avatar. Like one of the highest grossing movies of all time. He's arguably the most on-screen person in that movie because everyone else is blue. So it's like Stephen Lang's has the most minutes in Avatar. And he's also this squirrely weasel little character in Tombstone. So like that, first of all, just noting that that's Stephen Lang is one thing. I don't know for the life of me how Wyatt Earp doesn't pull the trigger when he's got the shotgun on him at the train station. It's like, dude, this dude you let this guy go. He immediately grabs a pistol and shoots at you 100 times with a six shot gun. We're going to talk about that at some point. I imagine bullets in Hollywood were just at an all-time high in this movie, probably in particular, but I just don't know why he got to live for as long as he did. And then he got to run away at the end of the movie anyway. Lamar, like he gives up his sash and then he gets to leave for the 5th time from the clutches of Wyatt Earp. Like Wyatt Earp should have just murdered that
he's
dude.
Literally going to pull a U-turn and pick the sash back up and put it right back
just
on.
Weasel.
I don't get why they
just
let
a
him
weasel
go
of a bad guy, and it's just like you got to kill him at the train station. That's my take.
Yes.
He plays a very good like weasel cowardly bitch.
Yeah.
Like they do a very good job of that. I think they couldn't get away from the history of it because the real guy is not 100% a Weasley little bitch, and he does not die in the Vendetta ride. He just doesn't, so you can't, I mean, you could, I guess, but like you can't lie about that at a certain point if you're trying to be as authentic as possible. And that specific literal physical ride, like to me, that's just all a metaphor for the vendetta ride, right? They're not literally chasing him down ever. But he does disassociate from the Cowboys. So it doesn't happen in this exact way, but he does disassociate from the Cowboys. And he actually respected Wyatt Earp, even though there was this ongoing fight between them. They actually respected Wyatt Earp briefly because he's the one who saved Curly Bill from being hung after the murder of Fred Marshall. Like that's a real scene. Like he was like, he needs to be judged by a judge and a jury. Like we're not going, this mob is not going to hang him here. And so they appreciated that. And his testimony actually, again, did help get him off. So like he indirectly had some respect for Wyatt for some time there. And I think that
Wait, are
Wyatt
you telling
was
me that here in our country, the United States of America, you can have due process and trials and people might be found innocent of the crime you're accusing them of? Is that something that happens?
Sometimes, like once in a while.
Somebody should memo the White House, maybe.
I have starred here. Laws used to mean something to people. We used to be a good country.
Oh my God.
You know?
Yeah. we used to although Judge Spicer kind of sucked.
Yeah,
Judge Spicer, like, notably kind of sucked.
And I know that was real, too. Like, he got off on a technicality. Like, the judge kind of let him go, and there was corruption at that point, too. So, like,
and there
I
were
thought that was interesting.
Several.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's why Behan tries to arrest the Earps as well.
Behan. We need to talk about Behan for a little while.
Can we talk about it? What a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's the worst, and he's truly the worst in real life. Like, he's actually the worst. But he basically they got conflicting warrants is the point. Like, there's federal warrants, town warrants, county warrants, etc. And he got a conflicting warrant that allowed him to go after the Earps. But it did eventually fully get dismissed by a judge who was like, the OK Corral, for example, was deemed lawful. Like that fight was deemed lawful and that they had not done anything wrong. They were trying to disarm these people who were breaking the law. But Behan tried to genuinely arrest them for that. And was like, because there is proof, like in court records, that he had loaned Ike Clanton money. He had like such a bias, like he had ties to the Cowboys, and he was a very corrupt politician. And so, yeah, they do a good job of making him the sleazeball that he absolutely is.
Yeah, some would say that's accurate today too, Lamar. You got judges doing some shit that ties them to known felons. Anyway,
the more things change, the more they stay the same, eh?
Yeah. But I also like one scene that I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to talk about briefly is the Ringo and the Doc Holliday when Ringo is drunk.
Yeah.
Scene, because a number of things about that scene I really love. One, like Doc is the most composed and well that he's been really in a while in this scene, and he's really giving that like Southern dandy vibe that is his history, right? Like that's where he's from, like that he is an educated like Southern gentleman. And I love how much that energy comes through in this whole scene.
Is this the sassiest cowboy in cinema history, or at least as of 1993, the sassiest?
100%. Yeah. Maybe since.
I know he's not technically a cowboy in this, but
to Mackenzie's point, Curly Bill might be the sassiest cowboy there.
They balance each other out, one on each side.
Yeah, they just foil each other. You need a good one. But yeah, he's so sassy. He's so like he's got the look to him and the tone and I just love that everyone else is so raw from this fight, including Ringo, right? This is the first time we've really seen Ringo break. And I think that's telling too of like that's an interesting shift for him as a character who has been almost disassociating from everything around him. He's very neutral. He has no real feelings. He is just that like no conscience guy.
Did you read that fact about the actor's portrayal of him in this, Mackenzie?
I don't know. I saw the making of where he talked about it, but I'm not sure if it's
there was, and I didn't validate this. I read this after I saw the film, but apparently the actor made it a conscious choice to not blink throughout all his early scenes. Like he might blink once or twice throughout the whole movie, but he wants the steely gaze of how fucked Ringo is in the head and how dead set he is on just death around him. The first time that he really makes it a point to blink is in that final showdown with Doc, where he's doubting himself.
Well, it's a perfect segue into what I wanted to say. Can we have a Michael Biehn conversation for a second? Like, why wasn't Michael Biehn a thing? Why was it? He was in Terminator
Kind
1.
of was for
So like
Aliens.
Aliens, Terminator 1. I can't remember everything else he did. And then Tombstone 93. It felt like it would have been in his physical prime. And I'm watching him as Johnny Ringo, and I'm like, yo, like Michael Biehn's really crushing this. Like, why did he not become Gary Oldman in the 90s in that villain aspect? Like, why didn't he become more of a thing? Did he get market corrected by Gary Oldman?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it could be. Like, I mean, sometimes you can't have two people doing the same thing at the same time, like you're saying. But I think he does a great job in this of really embodying this character. And the thing that I watched, like the making of documentary about him, is he was like, he took a different approach than Val. Like Val was very method. And like, even in that's a fun fact about that making of documentary. He does it in the accent of Doc Holliday. Like he doesn't break almost. He's answering questions that are about the production of this film, but he is being Doc as he's doing it, which is kind of, I don't think the interviewers really knew what to do with. But in that same one, Michael Biehn is kind of taking a different approach where he's like, everybody here knows I'm the bad guy. Like I have to work with these people differently than that because everybody knows who Johnny Ringo is. Like he's that person. He's like peak death, bad guy, like no conscience, black heart, like the whole thing. So I get to walk around here and just be Michael Biehn because everybody knows when the camera starts, like I'm going to switch into Johnny and I have to cancel those things out. And I thought that was a really interesting approach to that and tells me a lot about his process and like how he can really keep those things separate, which we have to say like Val doesn't do, you know?
No, well, for as much as we said, Mac, that like he doesn't become a thing, but for what Mackenzie's talking about of like his craft and being self-aware, like he's talented. And I think he's very well respected in Hollywood. The thing I remember him from it most recently were the Grindhouse films. So Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez made it a point to be like, not only is he going to be a main cast member in this, but he's going to cameo in both of these double feature films. So he's clearly still very well respected in Hollywood, I would think.
I think so.
But no, I don't know why he wasn't a bigger thing.
I don't know either. But I do love how they complement each other in this. And I think it is that like, this is that young gun who's trying to come in hot, and they can be one of two things. They can either be mentor, mentee, best friends, or they can be arch enemies. And those are the only two options, right? And he becomes his arch enemy. And I think it's because, again, like you said, his fear shows in that last blink of, I actually don't think I can do this. I don't think I can beat that guy. But I love that Doc maintains his confidence throughout, and even in this scene as well, where he's just like, I'm ready when you are, you know? And he's like, say when, you know? He wants it, and they all have to stop him. That's the thing that gets me too, is like everyone else can read the room. Everyone else knows that he's not going to win this, and they have to pull him away from it. And I love that showdown with them, and I wore my shirt accordingly.
Say when.
So many props today. I love
Oh my God. I love this movie.
The shit talking after he kills Johnny of just he's played it so cool entire 99% of the film to this point, and finally he's like, you're fucking nothing, like you are so much, I knew I was gonna beat you. That's just great payoff of him finally sounding a little different than how he sounded for the first 90% of the film.
Yeah, he sounds so together up until then he is just being a shit talker, like in a different way of just like, fuck you.
There's nobody else around. It's just the
There's
two
nobody
of them.
Yeah. I'm going to flip what Lamar said earlier. He said, you know, maybe there was a flash of like, you know, Doc being like, okay, what am I up against here? Is this guy got talent? I think that's just him measuring him up. He's just like watching his posturing. But at the end of the movie, when Johnny Ringo sees Doc come through the trees, that's when Johnny's like, he's looking for a second. He's like, oh shit. Shit. I was really confident being like, I thought you weren't going to show, motherfucker. And then Doc walks up and he's like, all right, let's do it.
He doesn't have time to hype himself up, right? He's like, if he had maybe had time to hype himself, it could go either way, right? But he has no time to adjust. He's just terrified.
Say when.
Say when. I love it. Oh my God. Okay, you guys. I think we talked about so many things. I could go on for actual hours about this movie, but we shouldn't. So any final thoughts before we give our ratings?
I would just say, like, I feel like my presence here is appropriate because I oscillate between the two of you on this film. I oscillate.
I mean, I know you say that, but I brought you for backup, and I feel a little betrayed. Actually,
no, but I have to be true to like what I saw from the movie. Like, there are swings of this where I'm like, man, Like, is there a better Western? And then I have stuff written down of like weird conclusion to the movie, like the rain scene just way too on the nose. So there is a portion of this where you can swing back and forth on this movie, and I think this movie should be respected, but I also think this movie is slightly overrated. So like I really sit right in between both of y'all.
Yikes. Okay, Lamar, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts would be, I think that as far as top 10 saddest last words in cinema, I think that Bill Paxton in this of, hey, remember when I said you see a light? It's not true. I can't see a damn thing. Those are some very sad final words.
Sad. That is sad.
It's a bummer, and it's kind of hinted. I was like, why is he saying this earlier in the movie? It seems so, again, to Mac's point, it's out of place that he says, I've been reading a book on this. Did you know that people see a light when they die? All to feed that eventual payoff, which is a good payoff. And
he was like that. He was that like spiritual of the brothers, and he was like the young kid who just really idolized his older brothers. And they don't really touch on this, but Wyatt has like 5 or 6 brothers, and Morgan is actually not the youngest. Warren is, and Warren goes on the vendetta ride with him for Morgan. Like, he's not here in Tombstone at all. He is not involved at all, and he comes because Morgan is killed. So it is a really sad moment when he dies, both in the movie and in real life.
The only other quote that I wanted to call out before we get into ratings was, tell him the law's coming, tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me. So gents and ladies out there, if you need something to scream in bed, I think that's the line to take away from this movie.
No, it
Tell
ruins it.
Tell
You're ruining. Oh my God. Oh God. Okay. And on that note, moving on, what are your ratings? Don't listen to Lamar. Mac, what would you give Tombstone with your very balanced viewpoint that I was not prepared for?
Yeah, see if Mac falls in between our ratings when we get to
yeah,
that
would be very poetic if I was like numerically in the median. I would
get to change yours, Lamar, for that. Okay,
it's fair. I know what I'm going with.
I would say this movie's in the low 7s. The execution is high for a Western. I think that some of the stuff really does work, and I think some of it's like, why is this here? It's too long. I would say solidly at like a 7.3.
I mean, you kind of jive with like the ratings ish. You're actually a little bit lower than critics and audiences, but you're in the ballpark. So okay. What about you, Lamar?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking personal rating scales, if I were being objective, I would rate this higher because I do think it's probably in the circles of people. But for somebody who doesn't love Westerns and kind of tunes out of specific parts of this that are a little, again, melodramatic, male melodrama, machismo melodrama, but there are so many badass moments in this that really ratchet it up for me. But yeah, I think I'm between 7 and 7.5. Honestly, I was going to give it, I think 7.5 is where I come in at. Of it's really enjoyable, even as someone who doesn't like the genre. But there's a lot I would change about it. Like I said, it's 80% of a perfect film, and if they had just gotten the rest of those components right, it'd be much higher for me.
I'm over the both of you. It's fine. No, I fucking love this movie. If that was not clear,
Fair.
Obviously, I just think there's so many things that land for me. Like, as soon as the narration starts, like I said, I had it in my notes. I was like, let's fucking go. Like, I'm so amped to have this experience and all the quotes and all the characters. And I love how beautifully done and shot it is. Even though the vendetta ride lasts for a long time, it's a great time. I love the horse shots. I love the like scenes and the way that they're shooting it. I love the way the music complements it. They just look and feel like badasses, and I have a great time with that. So, and we've established all last month, Lamar, I love a good action movie. So, I give this fucker a 9. This is a 9 for me. I have the best time watching this movie. It's so good.
Nice.
So, that's okay. I'll be here on my little island. I'm happy with it.
Well, I'll see you next week from MacGruber. We're gonna run it back.
It's gonna be the exact fucking opposite. Okay,
10 out of 10 wouldn't change a thing.
Either way, I was deeply disappointed by you, Mac. I had a great time having you here, but other than that, I'm very upset with you. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for coming. You have to. You actually always give us such great things to talk about and such stuff to add. So I'm so glad you got to come back. Thank you for joining us again.
I was just gonna say, despite the mixed feelings upon my exit here, I love being on this pod. I will come back any movie you want to put me on. I'm here. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, we love you too, bud. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. All right, homies, come back next week for our next entry in Val Kilmer month, which, as we've said several times now, I'm going to have a great fucking time with, which is MacGruber, because compromise, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're going to talk about that one. But in
I
the
was telling
meantime,
somebody recently, Mackenzie, that being on a pod with you, I feel like for both of us, it's like being in a second relationship. And there is a lot of compromise that
There
comes
is.
along with being podcast partners. So
there
one
really
for you,
is.
one for me.
Yeah. You gotta give to get, as they say. So this one's gonna be my give. And I'll survive. It's fine. But in the meantime,
follow us on our socials. We drink and we watch things, Instagram, TikTok. You can also view the video portion of this on YouTube or on Spotify, which now does video. You just got to click the little button and it'll toggle on the video. Don't do that while you're driving, please. And you can always email us at wedrinkandwewatchthingspod@gmail.com with any thoughts, feedback, all that good stuff.
Indeed. All right, friends, go have a drink and watch a thing. Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm your huckleberry.